This is a story about a world obsessed with stuff. It's a story about a system in crisis. We're trashing the planet, we're trashing each other, and we're not even having fun. The good thing is that when we start to understand the system, we start to see lots of places to step in and turn these problems into solutions. The other day, I couldn't find my computer charger. My computer is my lifeline to my work, my friends, my music. So I looked everywhere, even in that drawer where this lives. I know you have one too, a tangle of old chargers, the sad remains of electronics past. How did I end up with so many of these things? It's not like I'm always after the latest gadget. My old devices broke or became so obsolete I couldn't use them anymore. And not one of these old chargers fits my computer. Ugh! This isn't just bad luck. It's bad design. I call it design for the dump.
Hold it. Stop. Now, the reason that those chargers not fit your computer is because they put around 3 to 12 volts. Your computer uses, depending on the manufacturer, say Toshiba uses around 15 volts, or a Mac uses around 24 volts, and a Dell uses around 19 volts. It would need to have an adequate charger, and the reason they do this is for protection. If they'd allow you to use a 12-volt charger on a 24-volt source, it would burn out the charger. Likewise, if they let you use a 24-volt charger on a 12-volt device, it'll burn out the 12-volt device. I know what you're going to say. You're probably going to say, well, why can't they just make chargers that are 5 or 19 volts or whatever? Well, the reason why is because phones are thin, right? Yeah, duh. And it'll take a powerful inverter circuit to actually change a 19-volt input to 5 volts for the phone to actually run on. And likewise, with a computer, well then why not make them 5 volts? Well, with a computer, it has a bigger screen, a component, a hard drive, a more powerful processor, and so on, so it requires more volts and amps. That is why your computer charger did not work.
Design for the dump sounds crazy, right? But when you're trying to sell lots of stuff, it makes perfect sense. It's a key strategy of the companies that make our electronics. In fact, it's a key part of our whole unsustainable materials economy. Design for the dump means making stuff to be thrown away quickly. Today's electronics are hard to upgrade, easy to break, and impractical to repair. My DVD player broke and I took it to a shop to get fixed. The repair guy wanted $50 just to look at it. A new one at Target cost $39.
Again, stop. You were mad about your DVD player breaking, right? We all are mad when something breaks, right? Well, I can tell you, but first I want to ask you, who made it? Kobe or Jensen, or maybe even LG, I assume. Well, those companies are junk. Not to make you feel bad, of course, for picking something out like that, but you can't buy the cheapest. Buy like a Sony, Pioneer, or Panasonic. They're a little bit more expensive, but they work a lot better. Do not buy LG, Kobe, or Jensen, GE, Toshiba, Philips, and definitely not Brand X. Brand X meaning the brand name of no video with no brand, like Go Video, for example. In my opinion, you cannot say things are designed for the dump. Companies like LG, Jensen, Philips, maybe, but Sony, Asus, Pioneer do not. Please remember that.
In the 1960s, Gordon Moore, the giant brain and semiconductor pioneer, predicted that electronics designers could double processor speed every 18 months. So far, he's been right. This is called Moore's Law. But somehow, the bosses of these genius designers got it all twisted up. They seem to think that Moore's Law means every 18 months we have to throw out our old electronics and buy more.
Now, companies that the only companies that actually do that are companies that are really cheap and not worth buying in anyway. Companies like Asus, Pioneer, Sony, Dell, and so on make products with old Japanese capacitors and high-load compatible circuits. Now, how can you say that's designed for the dump? that's not like the evil geniuses in your video. All electronic manufacturers are not the same. And what that exactly means is that all of them do not design stuff for the dump. Some actually design it to last. And you gotta spend a little bit more money on that. It's not the cheapest, just like I said in the DVD player thing. You gotta spend a little bit money for something that's good.
Problem is, the 18 months that we use these things are just a blip in their entire life cycle. And that's where these dump designers aren't just causing a pain in our wallets, they're causing a global toxic emergency. You see, electronics start where most stuff starts, in mines and factories. Many of our gadgets are made from 1,000 different materials, shipped from around the world to assembly plants. There, workers turn them into products using loads of toxic chemicals like PVC, mercury, solvents, and flame retardants. Today, this usually happens in far-off places that are hard to monitor, but it used to happen near my home in Silicon Valley, which, thanks to the electronics industry, is one of the most poisoned communities in the U.S. IBM's own data revealed that its workers making computer chips had 40% more miscarriages and were significantly more likely to die from blood, brain, and kidney cancer. The same thing is starting to happen all around the world. It turns out the high-tech industry isn't as clean as its image.
Actually, most things are not loaded with toxins. A toxin is just a toxicity rate. It's just the risk of something to damage to the body. That's what makes it toxic. PVC is not a toxin. Mercury is only if you eat it. Who's gonna eat their computer? Yeah. Also, when we used lead solder and mercury, things lasted longer.
So, after its toxic trip around the globe, it lands in my hands. I love it for a year or so, and then it starts drifting further from its place of honor on my desk or in my pocket. Maybe it spends a little time in my garage before being tossed out. And that brings us to disposal, which we think of as the end of its life. But really, it's just moved on to become part of the mountains of e-waste we make every year. Remember how these devices were packed with toxic chemicals? Well, there's a simple rule of production. Toxics in, toxics out. Computers, cell phones, TVs, all this stuff is just waiting to release all their toxics when we throw them away. Some of them are slowly releasing this stuff even while we're using them. You know those fat old TVs that people are chucking for high-def flat screens? They each have about 5 pounds of lead in them. Lead, as in lead poisoning.
These so-called toxic chemicals are only dangerous unless you eat them. So, are you gonna go and eat your TV? Yeah, I didn't think so. One rule of common sense is never eat your electronics. Well, duh. Also, most people do use their electronics for a little bit more than a year. Most people use them for at least 3 or 4 years. I still have, and use, mind you, a Fisher stereo system from the 80s. Now, you should always use your electronics for slightly more than they're meant to be used, and they still do work for slightly more than they're meant to be used. But let's move on and see what else they have to say.
So, almost all of this e-waste either goes from my garage to a landfill, or it gets shipped overseas to the garage workshop of some guy in Guiyu, China, whose job it is to recycle it. I've visited a bunch of these so-called recycling operations. Workers without protective gear sit on the ground, smashing open electronics to recover the valuable metals inside and chucking or burning the parts that no one will pay them for. So while I'm on to my next gadget, my last gadget is off poisoning families in Guiyu or India or Nigeria. Each year, we make 25 million tons of e-waste, which gets dumped, burned, or recycled. And most recycling is anything but green. So are the geniuses who design these electronics actually evil geniuses? I don't think so, because the problems they're creating are well hidden even from them. You see, the companies they work for keep these human and environmental costs out of sight and off their accounting books. It's all about externalizing the true costs of production. Instead of companies paying to make their facilities safe, the workers pay with their health. Instead of them paying to redesign using fewer toxics, villagers pay by losing their clean drinking water. Externalizing costs allow companies to keep designing for the dump. They get the profits and everyone else pays. When we go along with it, it's like we're looking at this toxic mess and saying to companies, "You made it, but we'll deal with it." I've got a better idea. How about you made it, you deal with it? Doesn't that make more sense? Imagine that instead of all this toxic e-waste piling up in our garages or in the streets of Guiyu, We sent it to the garages of the CEOs who made it.
Now, wait. I think that's kind of mean. You know, when I grow up, I want to start a company. A good company. Like, well, I can't tell you the name. But anyway, I think that if you send everything back to the company, that's wrong. Yes, the company made it, but you bought it. So pretty much you're the problem for buying it. And you're the problem for throwing it away so quickly. Meaning that you end up how long you want to keep it. So pretty much most stuff can last longer than 1 year. Duh. Also, the CEOs of most companies are not evil and all they want is money. In some cases, this is what happens, but that's only companies that make a terrible product. Companies like Sony, Pioneer, Panasonic, and so on make stuff that lasts. The problem is people that do not want to keep it for more than a year and want new. In this video, it looks as if the companies are dumping toxic chemicals, which remember are only toxic if you eat them, on the ground and such, which is anything but true. They have to go through many regulations and such before they can even release these. I have a friend who works in electronic industry, and he said that their stuff goes through extensive testing before it can be released. This testing is such as making sure that it has as small as possible electromagnetic field, no toxic release while using it, and so on.
Obsolescence is another word for designed for the dump. It means they actually make it as quickly as possible, so we'll chuck it and buy a new one. It's obvious with things like plastic bags and coffee cups, but now it's even big stuff. Mops, DVDs, cameras, barbecues even, everything. Even computers. Have you noticed that when you buy a computer now, the technology is changing so fast that in just a couple of years, it's actually an impediment to communication? I was curious about this, so I opened up a big desktop computer to see what was inside. And I found out that the piece that changes each year is just a tiny little piece in the corner. But you can't just change that one piece because each new version is a different shape. So you...
Hold on. Desktop computers do not go obsolete in 3 years. Who in the world made that one up? Also, each new version of processor are not different. Do you have a computer with an Intel LGA 775 socket from 2006-2009? You can actually still get a better CPU than that. Like, for example, a 775 CPU. That's much faster than the one that was originally in there. Or let's say you have a 2010 machine that's running slow and is Intel based. You can get a brand new 1155 CPU. People still buy them. Same is true for graphics and memory. Here, I'll show you. Now, keep in mind that, well, I'll show you. Here we go. Here's 1155 CPUs. And I have another tab that says 775 CPUs. Look at all these buying choices. Wow. Holy cow, we even have the newest generation i7 available. Wow. Anyway, let's check the 775s. Oh, we have a Core 2 Duo, 3 GHz. That's pretty fast. We have a Pentium D, Core 2 Quad, quad-core processor you can still buy for your 5-year-old computer. Another Core 2 Quad. Core 2 Extreme. Holy cow, I didn't know you could buy this. Wow. Well, just look at that. That just proves your little thing wrong right there. Each new version is not different.
You can bet that they'd be on the phone to their designers pretty fast demanding they stop designing for the dump. Making companies deal with their e-waste is called extended producer responsibility, or product take-back. If all these old gadgets were their problem, it would be cheaper for them to just design them longer lasting, less toxic, and more recyclable in the first place. They could even make them modular so that when one part broke, they could just send us a new piece instead of taking back the whole broken mess.
They actually can.
Already, take-back laws are popping up all over Europe and Asia. In the US, many cities and states are passing similar laws. These laws need to be protected and strengthened. It's time to get these brainiacs on our side. With take-back laws and citizen action to demand greener products, we can start a race to the top, where designers compete to make long-lasting, toxic-free products. So let's have a green Moore's Law. How about the use of toxic chemicals will be cut in half every 18 months? The number of workers poisoned will decline at an even faster rate. We need to give these designers a challenge they can rise to and do what they do best: innovate. Already, some of them are realizing they're too smart to be dump designers and are figuring out how to make computers without PVC or toxic flame retardants. Good job, guys. But we can do even more. When we take our e-waste to recyclers, we can make sure they don't export it to developing countries. And when we do need to buy new gadgets, we can choose greener products. But the truth is, we are never going to just shop our way out of this problem, because the choices available to us at the store are limited by the choices of designers and policymakers outside of the store. That's why we need to join with others to demand stronger laws on toxic chemicals and on banning e-waste exports. There are billions of people out there who want access to the incredible web of information and entertainment that electronics offer. But it's the access they want, not all the toxic garbage. So let's get our brains working on sending that old design for the dump mentality to the dump where it belongs, and instead building an electronics industry and a global society that's designed to last.
Most companies do not like design to the dump, like I said earlier. Take-back laws are garbage, also. I hope this video is informative and useful. Please share it and like it. I need to get my word out of this video. It not only really helps me on my YouTube channel, but I need to get the word out about this video. Thank you for watching. I'm Joshua. With Joshua's Recordings. Now, about that last part, I just want to say a couple things. Number one, it is your fault for throwing stuff away so early. I don't want to offend anyone that does it, like, goes and buys new, but you know what you could do? And instead of following theirs, okay, I don't want to be mean. Not that great advice. Why don't you do this? When you don't want something, I bet you someone out there does. Instead of throwing it away, or pitching it, or recycling it even, why don't you sell it? It will make you a lot of money and save you a lot of time. Use Craigslist. It's free and it's easy. They'll come pick it up. No shipping involved. I've done it before. And so, that's just something you can think about. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.